Okay, so we are live. Um, Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the SheVestor Africa platform. Today, we will be talking about how to be bougie, um, how the African women can be bougie. So so my name is Chinonye Donna Egbulem, and here we have Chinazom Chidolue. Welcome, Chinazom.
Chinonye. Should I just call you Chi Chi?
You can call me Chi Chi, sure. Yeah, so for those of you that are tuning in and you don't know, SheVestor Africa is a prime financial literacy community for the African millennial. We focus on sharing engaging content on personal finance, personal development. We provide all kinds of inspiration, daily inspiration, advice. We have, we're primarily targeting women in Africa or women in the African diaspora. If you feel a close connection to the African woman or you identify closely with the African women, this platform is for you. SheVestor Africa, we are changing the narrative by changing the narrative for what it means to be a strong African woman that is all about having great, doing well when it comes to personal finance, being more involved, engaged, financially literate, etc. So before we get started, I'd like to share more about our guest speaker, Chinazom. She is an accountant and a millennial personal finance blogger. She grew up in Abuja, Nigeria. So for those tuning in from Nigeria, here you go. Here's your sister. She grew up in a household with entrepreneurial parents, which led her to develop a keen interest in business and finance. This interest led her to attend business school, and in 2015, she graduated with a Bachelor of Commerce in accounting with distinction. So brilliant, Chinazom, welcome. So today, while speaking with her friends about money, she noticed that most millennials had no guidance when it came to their finances. So she chose to fill this gap by creating a platform to encourage millennials to take control of their finances and become the CEOs of their lives. So, in her spare time, she, works very diligently to support and encourage women, or not just women, millennials, essentially, of all kinds. So she has combined her background in accountants and her passion for financial literacy by founding her very own platform called Investment Conversations. If you'd like to learn more, her website is investmentconversations.com. She has a personal finance blog, which was created to help millennials. And so check it out. You can also follow her on Instagram. Why don't you go ahead and share your Instagram platform, Chinazom?
My Instagram name is IC, so letter I, then C _ Chinazom, CHINAZOM. And the IC stands for Investment Conversations. So there's that.
Yes, thank you. So I know we've shared a little bit about you, but I think that the crowd would love to learn more about you and your journey. Like, what is your story? What is your winning formula for all the success that you've had thus far as an accountant and a millennial? And a blogger, a personal finance blogger.
Oh, thanks, Chi. First of all, thank you so much for having me. And this is my first webinar. I've been telling myself I'll do some type of webinar online for like 2 years, and this is my first one. So I'm glad I finally get around to doing it. So like you said, my name is Chinazom, and I'm an accountant or a financial auditor and a millennial personal finance blogger. And I blog at investmentconversations.com. So I started that in February 2016, soon after I graduated from university. I didn't have any student loans or any debt. I did have some credit card debt, and I felt so terrible about it. So because my parents don't live in Canada, they weren't born in Canada. I wasn't born in Canada. I didn't really have any parents to tell me, oh, this is exactly how to use your credit card. This is exactly, what you need to know about your credit score. I didn't really have any of that. So I just kept asking people when I was about to graduate from university, I kept asking people that were a bit older than me about their finances. I started asking, how do you start saving your money? How did you buy your car? How did you start planning for retirement? How did you use your company pension plans? Things like that. And I guess what I found that really, really shocked me. I feel like as young people, we think that when you're in your 30s or late 20s, you're meant to have all your shit together. Sorry, I scoffed. You're meant to have your stuff together. But I realized that many people didn't have their stuff together. And not only did they not have their stuff together, they didn't like talking about money because it made them a bit anxious. And they also were, some of them are apathetic, so they just didn't care. And I found out that it was mainly because of fear. They were very afraid to talk about money. They were very afraid to think about money. And it's just because they were scared about what they didn't know. And because I had a background in accounting and finance and I was working in accounting, so I knew I was pretty good with numbers, but I needed to learn more about the psychology behind personal finance. Like, why is it that some people are able to save more than others? Why is it that some people are able to make better decisions than others, even if they make the same money and they work in the same places? So I later started doing a lot of my own research. I found out that personal finance is 90% habits and 10% about the numbers. I'm actually about to start a live video, so on Instagram. So I found out that, personal finance was 90% about the habits and 10% about the numbers. So after reading a lot of personal finance books and, reading a lot of blogs, getting started, investing my own money and building my credit score and just learn how to be more responsible when it came to money, I decided to build my own blog to just share my progress, but not just share my progress when it had to do with money, but just teach others what I had learned along the way, demystifying the topic of money and personal finance, and just showing people that, yeah, you can save your money, you can build your wealth, and you can also, earn more money. So that's what I do on Investment Conversations.
Yes. So thank you. For those tuning in, she is your guru, your personal finance expert guru. She can teach you all about what it means to be financially literate. Chinazom Chidolue. Am I pronouncing your last name correctly?
Yes, you're actually saying my name right.
Okay. Perfect. So, I guess, what is a budget for, when I hear the word budget, like I just, I think of like a template essentially where you properly document your income, your expenses. But for those of us who don't really know how to do that or aren't good with numbers, how would you recommend, how can African women budget?
Yeah, so, there's a lot of fear around what a budget is. And a budget is pretty much a financial plan for how you use your money for a certain period of time. It's a tool that allows you to make financial decisions ahead of time so you can achieve the goals that you set for yourself. So I'm sure you've heard that saying, he who fails to plan plans to fail. That's what your budget is. It allows you to plan how you're going to use all your income before you get your income. Because if you don't plan how you're going to use it, there's a higher chance you're going to misuse it, right? So for example, if I knew I'm going to make $3,000 for the month of May, I should have already planned how I'm going to spend all that money before time, right? So because chances are if I don't create a plan ahead of time, when that money comes in, I would spend it on other things. It could be good things. It could be, going back to school or, paying for a certain course. But if it's not aligned with my goals, then it's not great, right? So budgeting, people think that budget sucks, but budgets suck because it restricts them. But I think it's such a personal thing, and it helps you, live the life you want to live. I think that's what budgets are for. Sure. So not having a budget could be the difference between me being able to get a new car next year. Not having a budget could mean me not being able to afford a vacation this year. Not having a budget could mean the difference between me being able to pay for a down payment for a house next year. So a budget is really something that's liberating, and it's not restrictive if you do it right. So how can you as a woman or as a person start budgeting? I think the first thing is to be clear on your goals. Like, what are you budgeting for? Like, what are you saving for? What are you investing for? So I feel like everyone should have short-term goals and long-term goals. So your short-term goals could be paying off your credit card debt. It could be saving for an emergency fund or a rainy day fund. it could be going on vacation this year. It could be anything. You know, your long-term goal could be buying a house. It could mean be starting a family. So I think the first thing would be to be clear about your goals. So writing down all your goals and then prioritizing your goals. When I first started my personal finance journey in 2015, like I said, I didn't have any student loan debt because my parents helped me out with my education, and I also got a lot of scholarship. But my first thing was to clear off my credit card debt. I had like $2,000 in credit card debt because I spent the money on shoes. So the first thing was to clear off my credit card debt. So I didn't think about saving any money. I just wanted to pay off all my debt, my credit card debt. So that's what I did. So I guess figure out what your goals are. The second thing is to figure out how much money you make. So how much cash or how much income do you make each month? So for me, my income was from and for a lot of people, your income tends to fluctuate. So if you're a freelance writer, if you're creative, and I'm sure Chichi, your income kind of fluctuates a bit because of your interior design. So if your income fluctuates from month to month, there are ways to also budget, but just knowing how much money you have each month that comes in. The third is what are your expenses? So you have to list out what you spend your money on. And what I would say is, look at your bank statements for the last 3 months or your credit card statements. And I guess categorize it like how much you spend on housing, how much you spend on transportation, how much you spend on food, how much you spend on savings and on debt. Figure out exactly where your money goes. And there's a general rule of thumb for personal finance. I know personal finance is personal, but it's still a general rule of thumb. And there's a 50-30-20 rule. They say 50% of your after-tax income should go to needs, and 30% should go to wants, and 20% should go to savings or retirement. But obviously, this depends on you. But I think the best thing to do is just to figure out where your money goes. And it's so telling when you actually sit down and look at your bank statements and figure out where my money goes. When I first started my personal finance journey, I realized in 1 year I spent about $750 in Uber. And like in 1 month, I remember spending like $280 on like eating out, and this is like minus my grocery expenses, right? So I guess just figuring out exactly where your money goes just tells you like, wow, like I'm actually misusing my money grossly. And actually, the reason why I couldn't go on vacation last year is because I ate my vacation money, like, right?
Oh, okay.
And the fourth thing is to prioritize. So you have to be able to distinguish between your needs and your wants. So think about what you're going to cut back on. So if you, for example, spent $300 eating out last month, maybe you'd cut it back to $100 this month and save $200, or use $200 for some of your debt. So yeah, so just list out your expenses and find out how much, list out your expenses, find out how much income you have, and then also think about what your goals are, and then like categorize your expenses in a budget template. I have a budget template on my website, investmentconversations.com, that would actually help you get started as well. And after creating a budget, then you have to automate your budget and also track your budget. See how you're doing, how you're doing each month and in relation to your goals.
Thank you. Thank you for that very rich, piece of advice. You guys have heard it. So for those of you who are interested in learning more about how to budget, be sure to check out Chinazom's platform, investmentconversations.com. So I guess that leads into our next question. I'm just very curious to know, Chinazom, you said that you spent about $2,000 or more on shoes, and that left you in a little bit of debt. And so the title of our webinar today is How to Be Bougie on a Budget. So yeah, what would you have to say about, for those of us who I know for me, like I'm always getting my nails done. I love all things fashion and design, interior design, like you said. So can the African woman budget more money than she has right now? For example, if she's getting paid again in 2 weeks, would you then budgeting that money now?
Yeah, so I think that's the whole point of a budget. Like the budget is for you to plan how you're going to spend your money ahead of time. So I'm getting paid in 2 weeks as well. I would hope so. I know that 10% of it is going to go to investing. I live at home. 10% of it is going to go to an ETF. Like, so your budget is meant to those financial decisions ahead of time. It's likely to make the wrong decision when you actually get the money, because chances are if you don't have a plan, when the money comes, you probably just spend it on whatever it is you want to spend it on. So yeah, you're meant to. The point of a budget is to think about how you're going to spend your money ahead of time. So you're not making that decision like today. It's just like when you're dieting. When you don't think about, I mean, let's say you're on a low carb diet. You don't think about, if you don't think about what you're going to eat tomorrow, then chances are you're going to order pizza, right? So you have to like do your food prep, grow your chicken and make your veggies and stuff like that. That's what budgeting is. You have to think about how you're going to spend your money so that when you actually do get the money, you don't spend it on frivolous things or something that doesn't align to your goals. And how to be bougie on a budget. I think everybody likes to look nice. Everyone wants to be on Instagram, straight stunting and everything. I like nice things. I like having nice shoes and nice purses and everything. And I think that people think that with the budget, you can have those things. People think that with the budget, you can go on a nice vacation. People think that with the budget, you can look good and you can get your nails done. But you can. It's just, I guess, the whole point of a budget is just living within your means and planning ahead of time. So if you want to go on vacation in August, then you're already putting away the money you need each month. So you're able to afford it without, having to take out credit card debt. And that's a mistake I made when I was in college, when I was much younger. Like I just, spent all my money. And then if I wanted to do something like go on vacation with my friends, and I'll just put everything on my credit card. And then the next month I'll try to find a way to pay off the credit card and the cycle just continues. And I feel like that's what I hated. I felt like every single paycheck I got, I was using to pay off some of my previous, like my credit card debt. And I got so sick of that. So I think a budget is meant to allow you to live the life you want without having, it affords you the freedom to live the life you want without having to take on debt, more debt.
Okay, yeah. So on that topic, speaking about debt, how would you recommend prioritizing differently just for different things in general, like versus paying down debt? Like when you have money coming in, you can be like, oh, well, I know I really want to buy this outfit. But what if you already, you already have a lot of debt, you've incurred a lot of debt along the way? How would you recommend going about prioritizing, especially, and putting together a budget?
Yeah. So I guess your question is, how do you balance paying off debt and, saving? Right. And I guess living your life. I think the reason why that question is so tricky is because everyone's situation is different. Like everyone has different types of debt. Everyone has different types of needs. So that's why it's a bit tricky. And also because, money is limited, right? So you can't do everything at once. So how do you prioritize that? Like I said earlier on, there's no one answer to how to pay off. There's no formula for paying off debt versus saving. There's just, because everybody's situation is different. People will say, a lot of people say, start by paying off your debt, like the smallest amount of debt first, because it builds momentum. Because once you pay off the first debt, like, let's say it's $500, once you pay that off, you feel more excited to pay off the next one. You feel more excited to pay off the $3,000 debt or the $10,000 debt. While that makes sense, I think the most important thing is to, maybe because I'm an accountant, I look at the numbers. I think the best way is to look at how much is your debt costing you, right? So, for example, okay, first of all, the most important thing is to have an emergency fund or a savings fund, because if something goes wrong and, for example, you can't get any more debt, then what happens, right? If something goes wrong, if you break your leg or your car breaks down, how are you going to afford to fix your car? So the most important thing is to build an emergency fund. And an emergency fund is, at least 3 to 6 months of your expenses. That's what, the general rule of thumb. But if you don't have this emergency fund, how do you prioritize? How do you balance paying off debt and building an emergency fund? I think the first thing is list out all your debt, and then figure out how much each of the debt costs. So what is the interest rates for each of those loans? So usually credit card debt is the most expensive. It could be anywhere from 17 to 20. And I would say tackle the debt with the highest interest first. So what a lot of people do is that they try to save all this money but they have a lot of debt. So it's like, if you have $2,000 worth of credit card debt and your interest rate on your credit card is 25%, would you rather save the $2,000 or use the $2,000 to pay off the debt? I think you should pay off the debt. Mm-hmm. Because what that means is, let's say you save the $2,000, you would have $2,000 and there's no interest you're making, there's no income you're making on that $2,000, right? Mm-hmm. So but what you're gonna what's gonna happen at the end of the day is that the $2,000 credit card debt is gonna lead to interest expense of about, 2,000 times 25% of $500, right? I think that's the amount of like $500. So at the end of the day, you're trying to save $2,000, but you actually lost $500 in interest.
Right.
So I think you should think about it as you're paying off that debt, so you're saving $500. That's how I like to look at it. So I would say try to build a saving, like an emergency fund first. So 3 to 6 months of your 3 to 6 months of your monthly expenses. Try to have that cash in your bank account, and then start paying off the high interest debt first. Pay off your credit cards. And then you can start trying to pay off the rest of them in whatever way you want. But I do think that it should be done simultaneously. After you've paid off your high interest debt, then you can start paying. Then you can start saving, making the minimum payments for your other types of debt. For example, you can make the minimum payments for your student loans, because you do have to make those minimum payments. If you don't make those minimum payments, then you could lose your house or your car or whatever the case may be. So I think it's good to find a balance, but think about the numbers. How much is your debt costing you to make that decision for yourself?
Okay, you guys have heard it. So think about your debt.
And I think somebody on my friend Tamara, she said The Total Money Makeover is a good book to read and start off that book. Yeah.
I didn't quite catch that. What did she say?
No, she was suggesting a book to start paying off debt. It's called The Total Money Makeover.
Okay, The Total Money Makeover. So
I think it's by Ramsey, who's a personal finance guru.
Oh, okay. So afterwards, I'll be sure to include that in the description for those who tune in later. And
yeah,
looking for literature or books that they can read to learn more about how to better budget and finance. So thank you so much, Chinazom. So yeah, I think you've shared quite a few strategies already that we all can use to build a financial life around our budget. So to be cognizant of the different types of debt that we've incurred, that's especially incurring interest or building interest over time, to really write it all down, track your income, track your expenses, put together a plan as to how you're going to, she mentioned save, you said anywhere between 3 to 6 months, right? Of
your monthly expenses should be held in cash in, whatever account you want.
Right. Okay. So is there anything else? Are there any other important strategies that we can use to build a financial life? Or
I really do think that personal finance is very simple. I think that, there's a myth that personal finance is very complicated, or for something to be effective, it has to be complicated. But personal finance really is very simple. It's, tenets you should have, or principles that you should have to, live the life that you want. And I think, I think I can summarize them in like 3 or 4 key principles. I think the first is to save money, which is done by living below your means, right? So people say for every paycheck, you have to have at least 10%. But then, and when somebody says, oh, how can I afford to save when I don't even make enough money?
Mm-hmm.
But then I always say, I always say back, like, imagine if the government 10%, right? You're going to find a way to survive, right? So if the government increases their tax by 10%, you're going to find a way to live just fine. You might not even notice. You obviously will scream at Trump or whoever the leader of your country is. You would scream and shout, but you'll find a way to live 10%, right? And it's the same thing as your money. Like it's like taxing yourself. That's what people say, tax yourself. Mm-hmm. So if you're able to pay the government, let's say 20% of your income as tax, and if you're paying your church 10% for tithe, or you're paying God 10% for tithe, able to save or pay yourself at least 10%, at least do that for your future self or your kids or whoever your dependents are. And so the first one is to save money or live below your means. The second is to make your money earn more money. And for most people, this is through investing your money, like investing in the stock markets, investing in the money market, where you earn dividends or when you earn interest. For that's how most regular people are able to make their money earn money. But for a lot of other people, it's by starting a business, or it could be by buying a house, which is not really making your money earn money. But if you buy a house, then your house increases in value, then that's a gain for you in a sense. So that's the second thing: make your money earn money in whatever way you can. The third thing is to protect your money from loss. Like protect you've worked so hard to earn that money, so you have to find a way to not lose that money. And a lot of people will make those mistakes by, it could be something that's very complicated, like tax issues. Like they might not know the right, way to properly. They might have run into some tax complications in the way they file their taxes, and the government might come back and make them pay more money or something, or they can make a mistake with their taxes, which is losing your money, or they could invest in things they don't understand. I mean, I've seen so many people investing in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and Ethereum and other types of cryptocurrency, like Ethereum, which is good if you understand what you're doing. But for many people, they don't understand. So. And what happens is that they would lose that money. So protect your money from loss is another strategy, I guess. And I think the most important thing is to ensure yourself, like ensure your ability to earn more money in the future. This could be, for many people like me as a professional, could be continuing education by going back to school. And for many people, it could just be getting insurance, getting like critical illness insurance by having health insurance. Because what I feel like I always preach insurance, because a lot of people don't know how important insurance is. I mean, I know like a lot of people watching don't live in North America or in England. A lot of them actually live in African countries, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know how the insurance system is in Nigeria or in Ghana, but I know I think it's getting much better. There's a lot more resources available. But yeah, if something happens to you, like you don't want to, first of all, you're not able to make any money, but at least you want to know that you won't wake up, with, it's this sickness and not being able to make money, and also have to pay $100,000 worth of, have 100,000 worth of debt just because you're not insured. So that's something else. And also it's something to make sure that you're dependent and don't have to take care of your own financial burden.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for all of these tips, Chinazom. So you guys have heard it, and be sure again to follow her on Instagram. IC_Chinazom is spelled CHIN for Nancy, AZOM. correct? On Instagram, follow her, follow her, follow her. She is your personal finance guru. Check out her blog where she shares more about budgeting and just good habits to have and to how in order to be more financially literate.
Yeah, I feel, and I also have a budget, like a budget spreadsheet on my website, like how to create a budget that works for you. And I think this week I would have one for people who have variable incomes, because budgeting when you have a variable income is pretty difficult. So I'll probably try to get that post out this week.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
It'll be very valuable, especially so a lot of the people that are either joining us live or will eventually tune in later. That's correct. There's a lot of us who, like you mentioned, you know, they have variable incomes. Either they're business owners, or you know, even if they are working for a larger institution, they may be doing consultancy type work. And so I think that that would be very valuable. So be sure to check that out on her platform, investmentconversations.com.
Yeah.
So, earlier you shared a little bit about, you know, how to be bougie on a budget without making very silly mistakes. That will result in nothing but despair. But I do want to revisit that conversation. I guess, what advice would you give to young women who do want to be bougie on a budget, and you know, like if they, you know, I'm just thinking, like, let's say, for example, you're getting ready to take on, even with respect to, for those of us that have businesses, like if you're getting ready to take on a huge project, and you know that, you know, appearance when it comes to marketing is key, and you have to put together like a very large budget that will ultimately result in either more income, greater amount of sales. How would you recommend going about doing that? Or at that point in time, would you recommend bringing on an expert like yourself, or is that something that is possible for one to do by themselves?
I just want to clarify. Do you mean, so you're asking, so could you just ask the question again? Are you talking about personal or for business?
Yeah, so I would say for business, because earlier you shared a little bit about personal, but for business, for example, like I have my own, as you mentioned earlier, interior design platform, and you know, given the fact that we're still very much in the early stages of development, for those that are on, shameless plug, juneafrica.com, www.joonafrica.com. Yeah. I'm just thinking about how we literally started with like just $500, but when we launched, we realized like, oh, in order to build and maintain this momentum, like we have to go hard, you know, with respect to in-person marketing, online marketing, etc. So there's a lot of us who, you know, we may not have like a formal enterprise, but you know, we're just tapping into like whatever personal funds we have, reaching out to friends and family. How would you recommend, I guess, doing everything you can to essentially have like a good report, like, you know, to look good on paper and online, and to still not fall into the deep end?
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, a lot of people say, especially if you're starting a business, they always say, you know, you have to spend money to make money.
Yeah.
You have to do good to attract the kind of, you have to dress for the job you want. Okay. Or they say something like, you have to, so in Nigeria they call that packaging. Like you have to package. You have to package yourself so you're seen in the lights you want to be seen in, so you can attract your audience, like the target market, which is all fine and good. But obviously you don't want to get into debt doing that. So you have to look good as a business owner, and your business has to look good. Your marketing material has to be on point, and everything has to be good. So I think the only thing I would say is I always go to the numbers. I'm an accountant, maybe that's why I always go to the numbers, but I always go to the numbers. Like, figure out, first of all, like, how much money are you making right now, and how much you have saved, and how much money would this potentially make you? So, I mean, some people say, okay, I'm gonna spend this money on this really nice, photo shoot. I'm gonna spend $1,000 on this amazing photo shoot for my website. I'm gonna get my headshots on fleek and everything, just because it's, to boost my personal brand, which is great. But a lot of times, like, how much is that going? That's personal. Like, how much does it contribute to your business, or to the money coming into your account each month or each year? It's very hard to quantify, but a lot of times they're really cheap. There are cheaper ways to do things. And some people just try to take the easier option. The easier option might not necessarily be the cheapest option. Okay. So yes, you can either pay in cash, or you can pay through sweat. So for example, for some people, like, they're creating like marketing material, like they're creating a website. They can either, like, I created my website myself and with some help from friends. So you have paid a professional web designer to create my website for me and paid like what, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, right? Or I could have, spent way more time every day, with my job as well. I could have spent way more time and still, have the same result. So I think it's very, very personal. It depends on what business you're in, and depends on what industry you're in, and what your skills are as well. But I think it's just figuring out, this is how much money I'm going to make from this investment. Think of everything as an investment. Yeah. It's not just think of everything as an investment. Like, I'm going to invest in money in building this website, and this website is going to give me hopefully this amount of cash each month, or it's going to give me the opportunity to do this and do this and do that. So think of everything as an investment and see if the investment will pay off for you. A lot of times it's very hard to quantify, but in that case, think of cheaper ways to get things done. It's all about being resourceful. And I think the most important thing about wealth or money that most people need to understand is, it's not about how much money you make, it's about how much money you keep. It doesn't matter if you make $100,000 or $500,000 or $1 million. It depends on how much of that. It depends how much of that money can you keep each month or each year. So I know a lot of people who make hundreds of thousands of dollars in investment banking that are not doing better than people that make $50,000 in whatever role they're in. So it's being resourceful, finding creative ways to accomplish the same result. And a lot of times bootstrapping actually produces the best quality sometimes, because it's just a certain creativity and innovation that comes with it.
Absolutely. So you said what was that term that you used? You said bootstrapping.
Yeah, bootstrapping in a business setting.
Okay.
Like DIYing your way through it.
I concur. I agree. I mean, you're absolutely correct. When we started, so for me, I know my parents instilled the importance of financial literacy at a young age. Like, I remember when I was 12 years old, they sent me to like an overnight boot camp. It was an all-girls boot camp, and it was just, they literally were teaching us how to budget and showing us how to save and the importance of saving, and just making smart financial decisions. So when my business partner and I, when we decided to launch our platform, June Africa, we, like you said, it really does require being resourceful, but at the same time doing everything you can to just have a sharp delivery, sharp presentation. So there are resources out there, and I'd be more than happy. So for those of you, if you are interested in learning more, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm on Instagram, Nonye Speaks. Nonye is spelled Nonye. Speaks, SPEAKS. And I'd be more than happy to share resources, even when it comes to building your own website. If it's not something that you're willing to do from scratch, oh my gosh. Yeah. Shopify, Squarespace, those are the two that come to mind. Your best friends, they will help you put together your analytics, track everything.
WordPress and Squarespace, yeah.
Yes. So feel free again to reach out to either I or Chinazom. You can follow us on Instagram, email us, hit us up. The last thing we want is for you to get into a very, very, very serious wahala. So, okay, so thank you. Yeah, I guess the next question has more to do with those of us that are just always on the struggle bus. You mentioned that you didn't really graduate with any financial debt. I myself, I was very privileged to get scholarships, so I don't know what it's like to be drenched in with student loans. However, I have friends, even though they don't have student loans, they still have credit card debt, and different types of debt. So a lot of us are just barely making ends meet, and we're trying to survive. What advice would you give to women who are in debt and can barely save on a monthly basis? Because that is a reality for a lot of us out there. How should, yeah.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, how much money should they aim to keep in their savings account while slowly but surely working to dig their way out of financial distress?
Yeah. Debt is a reality for most people, especially in North America, where I guess a lot of people have student loans. And it can be not just financially tasking, but like emotionally tasking. Like it's almost like a huge burden on you that you have to think about, every single day for a lot of people, depending on how much debt you have. So your question is how to, if you're, I guess, strapped for cash, you're struggling to make ends meet, and you're also trying to balance paying off debt and also saving, and also just living the life today, like living your present life. I would say, okay, first of all, like I think we already spoke about the question about how to prioritize between saving and paying off debt. So I said, focus on your high interest debt first. Think about how much is your debt costing you. So for a lot of people, the high interest debt is their credit card debt. So pay off that first. And you always have to have at least 3 to 6 months of income, saved. Sorry, 3 to 6 months of expenses saved. If you really don't have a lot of money, you're really struggling to make ends meet, there's only so much you can do with budgeting. I feel like you have to start thinking about the next level, like finding ways to earn more money. For a lot of people, earning more money is the solution to their problems. It's not about trying to find a way to save 50 cents here and $2 there and $7 here. For a lot of people, you just have to make more money. And I think if you need to just find a way to make that cash so you can actually pay off your debt, save your money, and also live the life you want, because life is short at the end of the day. You want to do things that you enjoy. You want to spend time with the people you love. So find a way to make more money. And I am the biggest proponent of side hustles. Like, ever since I was, in university, I used to make resumes for people. Like, you just have to find a way to make more money. I see a lot of personal finance bloggers that always talk about the latte factor. Like, you spend, $3 on coffee every single day. That $3 every single day could be, $3 times how many days are in a month? 30 months. So that could be $90 a month that you could have saved. Yes, that's important. You have to be able to manage your finances. At the same time, $90 a month is not that much money. It's a lot of money, yes, but it's not that much money. Sometimes, it's better for you to just focus on finding ways to earn more money. And side hustles, it could be, think about, I have a post in my blog about how to think about what side hustles to start and how to start a side hustle. It's just about finding what you're good at. Like, what are your skills? I think, okay, this is going to be, I'm going to go up on a bit of a tangent and talk about how to, start making more money. Although I don't make enough side hustle money at the moment. But I guess, first of all, find out what you're good at. Like, what are your skills? Number one, like, write it down. What are your skills? Number two, what are you qualified to do? Number three, what will people pay you for? Number 4, what would you actually enjoy doing? And, and what would actually pay you? Like, what would actually pay you the most and give you time to live the life you want to live? So if I look at myself, I will see, okay, what skills do I have? I'm an accountant, I'm getting my CPA, I'm getting my CFA. So these are things I know. I know how to write. I write personal finance articles on the side as well. I know how to write. I know how to speak in public. So these are some of the skills I have. So what can I do with those skills? Like so now what could I do? I could say, okay, well, I could, write personal finance or business articles for magazines or publications and get paid for that, which I do get paid for. Number 2, I could maybe copyright. If you're good at writing, if you're that good at writing, you can find a way to start, doing some copywriting for companies. If you're good at doing makeup, and you can start doing makeup for people, doing hair for people. Like you shouldn't just think about, okay, this is how much my employer is paying me. That is how much they have said. That's the value you're giving them. Let's say they're giving you $50,000. It doesn't mean you're worth $50,000 a year. It just means you're giving your employer $50,000 worth of value.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's up to you to say, okay, now, especially if you have a 9-to-5 job and your job, it doesn't go past that time. It's like, what am I going to do from 6 p.m. to, 12 midnight? What am I going to do with the 6 hours? How am I going to find ways to make more money? And that's up to you. And it's really, they say the average millionaire has 7 streams of income.
It's true.
Yeah. And so if you have 1 stream of income, then, what happens when you lose your job?
Right.
Yeah. So it's finding ways for you to make money.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I know I myself, like, I'm currently working for, so my background is in public health and in social work. So right now I work for a health insurance company. I have a 9-to-5, but I'm always thinking, like, I have all these skills and I'm not really putting them to use. Like, I mean, I'm a very resourceful person. There are so many people out there who don't have enough time in the day, whether it's to market or, like you mentioned earlier, right now in this day and age, I can't speak for what's happening out. So for those of you who don't know, like Chinazom, she's based in Canada.
Yeah.
Myself, I'm in the East Coast of America. I'm in the DMV, so the greater Washington, D.C. Area. And so, like, living out here, life is very expensive here. So you really don't have a choice but to, like, engage yourself and just reach out into your community and figure out what there is a need for, and to figure out how to have a side hustle, because that's the only way you're going to be able to, like, save and bring in more income. And I know, like, on a weekly basis, people are reaching out to me on LinkedIn. People are reaching out to me via text message, WhatsApp. They're looking for jobs. It's hard. Like, it's a tough market out here. It is really hard to find a job. I mean, it took me a good 5 months before I even found the job that I have now. And so I couldn't agree with you more when it comes to really sitting down, thinking about the skills that you have. For those of you out there, if you need help brainstorming, troubleshooting, I'd be more than happy to help. Hit me up. Nonye speaks, NonyeSpeaks. I'd be happy to talk with you more and help you to figure out, what your skill sets are, and to tap into that. So
yeah. And another thing I just want to add is, I feel like we live in such a great time where we have social media at our fingertips. Like, we can literally just sit in our houses and make money. Like, we literally don't need to go anywhere to make money. So it's, how are you using the resources available to you? You see people on Instagram, fighting celebrities and Kim Kardashian about being naked on Instagram, or fighting Kanye West for, some dumb stuff he says, or, talking to Black China. It's like, there are people steady making money from their Instagram every single day.
Absolutely.
They're using the same amount of time that you're spending on Instagram, but they're using it to make money that's probably the same as, or even more than how much you're making on your 9-to-5s. So really think about the resources you have available to you, and how are you using those resources? Like, are you using Instagram to find celebrities and just to gossip, or are you, marketing your skills? I mean, in this day and age, like, nobody is just an employee of something. You are your own company. You are your own personal brand, right? Like, and the way you carry yourself, you can make anybody believe whatever it is they want to believe. Your own priority could be to, look like a baller on Instagram, or to look like, a really good looking girl on Instagram. But just think about how people perceive you, and think about how you're using those opportunities. So for me, I intentionally wanted to be seen as a finance and accounting professional and a millennial personal finance blogger, which is what I am. And because of the way I curate my Instagram and my social media platform, so LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, I'm able to get a lot of opportunities for personal finance writing, or even for job opportunities, like full-time job opportunities, or speaking engagements, all of which, increases my income. So it's like, you really have to think about those resources you have available to you to make more money.
Absolutely. Thank you. So I'm just curious to know, is it cheating if one is constantly changing their budget all the time?
Yeah. What do you like, changing their budgets? Like, could you say that again?
Yeah, like let's say I were to go to your website, investmentconversations.com, and I were to download a template, take the time out to put together, document what my income, my expenses are. What happens if every month I'm just like, I go back, I revisit, I'm changing it. I'm like, okay, well, I know I want to spend more money on this, or I want to spend more money on that. How consistent should one be? And like, how true should one stay to their budget? Like, I guess, is there like a recommended time frame, or what do you recommend?
I think that you have to do what works for you.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, you can't lie to yourself. Like, I don't know. It's your money. So the question, I'm also on Instagram Live, so I'm going to say the question again. So the question is it cheating if you adjust your budget? Like, how often can somebody like adjust their budget? And I really think you have to do what works for you. Like, I think the first step is creating a budget that works for you. Because if for example you create a budget where you have no eating out, no Uber, no, I'm not even gonna get my hair done this month, I'm not gonna get my nail, I'm gonna track 1 hour to walk to work each day, it's like, that is not realistic, and the chances that you're gonna follow that budget is like really slim. So first of all, the most important thing is like creating a budget that works for you. And the only way to create a budget that works for you is through trial and error. Like, if, for example, you budget, you can spend $200 on food this month, and next month you spend $250. And you were being very, very, like, you were being, you were being good with your money, then you can increase your budget to $250, because what that means is that $50 will probably have to come from somewhere else. Where is it coming from? So by creating, I think even just having a budget is an amazing thing. Like, by saying, okay, now I know I'm going to spend $50 more on my food, but where is that $50 going to come from? Is it going to come from my savings, which means I'm probably not going to be able to go on vacation this year? Or is that going to come from my nail fund, like the fund to do my hair, like get my nails done, my hair done? Do you understand what I mean? So it's like, you can change your budget, like adapt your budget to whatever situation you find yourself. But like, I think just the exercise of having a budget just makes you more cognizant about where the money is coming from. Because if you're saying the $50 extra in food is going to come from savings, that means don't be mad if you can't go on vacation this year.
Right.
Yeah. So just thinking about what works for you, and making sure that it's aligned to your goals. So I don't think it's cheating. That's the short answer to your question. It's just like, at the end of the day, if you're not being responsible, you bear the brunt at the end of the day.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. So I think you have touched on a lot of things today. We're going to wrap up in the next couple of minutes. But I I guess how, yeah, like I'm just trying to think of all the questions that I had in mind. You already, um, or I guess like how, for those of us who are living paycheck to paycheck, how can one spend less than they earn with a very low salary? Like find yourself living paycheck to paycheck. You already have a low salary. I mean, you mentioned like, it might be time to just sit down and have like a real candid conversation with yourself and figure out a way to like, bring in more income, whether it's through the formal or informal economy. But do you have any recommendations for, I'm also thinking like something that comes to mind, like I know I myself, like I live in an apartment, I have a roommate. I have friends who are like, no, I can't have a roommate. Like I don't want to live with anybody else. But if you find yourself in a situation where you're living paycheck to paycheck, it might even cause, it might require that you even take time to think about like how you live. Like you might want to bring in another roommate. If you don't want to bring in another roommate, it might require like, I know a lot of us don't want to hear it, but maybe moving into an auntie's house or like moving back home to live with your parents who may charge you little to nothing for rent. So I guess, do you have anything else to add when it comes to, I guess, what are some more ways that, those of us who are in tight situations, that we can still live the life we want to live and be able to save money?
Yeah, so your question is how, first of all, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, like what can you do to start saving more money and just break that cycle? I think the first thing I have to say is a lot of people, I mean, it's not based on your income. There are a lot of people that make $15,000 a month that live paycheck to paycheck. And there are a lot of people that make $1,000 a month that do not live paycheck to paycheck.
That's true.
So it's not about your income. Yes, your income does matter to an extent, but it's not just about how much you make. It's about your habits. So if you find out you're living paycheck to paycheck, number one, figure out why am I living paycheck to paycheck? Like, why is it that, at the end of the month, there's more month than money? Like I run out of money before I run out of month. You know what I mean? Like I'm in the middle of the month, but my money is run out. Like what is going on? So it's like you have to figure out why. And I think the first thing is, that's why I say you should think about your expenses. Like, what are you spending money on each month? And just looking at your bank statements for the last 3 months is really telling. Like, you'll figure out that, wow, like I was using Uber, it's like $10 here, $10 there. It really does add up really fast. Yeah. You find out that you might have spent $200 on Uber in the last month. You might find out you spent $300 eating out in the last 2 months because of your habit of not bringing food to work every day. So I think the first thing is figuring out where exactly is my money going. That's the number one thing to do. Like number two is like really seeing where can I cut the cost? Like what is not important to me? Like, so for me, when I first started my personal finance journey, I had to go through my bank statements. Like, okay, because this is crazy. Like I'm living at home, so I don't need to, why am I spending so much money? So I realized I was spending a lot of money on Uber. I was spending a lot of money on clothes. I was spending a lot of money on like getting my nails done, getting my hair done, and things like that. I was also spending a lot of money on, I think I said eating out. I used to love eating out all the time. And I was like, then I realized, look, what is important to me? Nobody's saying you should think like you should throw away everything that matters to you. But I realized I really don't care about eating out every single day. Like I really don't even like fast food that much. I'd rather just save my money and maybe treat myself to special occasions where I go out. So I said, I'm going to start taking my food to lunch. So I do take my food to lunch, my food to work most times. So I started taking my food to work. And the second thing was, I don't really care about getting my nails done by a professional. So, I mean, yes, I treat myself from time to time. So I started doing my nails myself. So I started cutting off, I don't care about using an Uber. Like I'd rather just wake up a few minutes earlier and then catch the train to work. So I cut that out I cut most of that out from my monthly expenses. So from there, you realize that, wow, I actually have a lot more money to save or, to invest or to put towards a vacation or do something that I actually really, really like. So I think just think about the expenses and the habits that you have that is making you live paycheck to paycheck. And people realize they have really, really bad habits that are making them stay at the same level. Some people's bad habits is just not not waking up early. They don't want to wake up early. So that means they have to use an Uber to work almost every day.
That's true.
That's true. Instead of using the train. I mean, they could be saving $20 or, well, let's say saving $15 every day by by taking the train, but they would rather sleep in. So as far as your bad habits are costing you, I think you just have to be cognizant of that fact. So the way to really break the living paycheck to paycheck cycle is to sit down, get a glass of wine or a glass of water or I don't know, ginger ale or whatever, and think about why your expenses are so high, why your income is not why it's not adding up, right? And think about the habits you've formed that have made you get to where you are, and think about ways to break those habits. Like, how can I start breaking those habits so I can actually start living the life I want to live?
Absolutely. Thank you. So I think in layman, yeah, it really just does boil down to living within your means, just taking some time to really evaluate yourself, the choices that you're making as it relates to spending your money or doing whatever you can to save it. Whether it means changing certain habits. It's interesting because for those of you who don't know, like black tax, for those of you who have never heard of it, black tax, it is a cycle. It's a cycle in a family where the ones who have achieved some financial success, they have a lot of people who depend on them. And so they unfortunately find themselves in a situation where they are always coming to the rescue, helping other people to get out of like financial rut. And then the next person that ends up gaining money continues to support everyone else, and the cycle continues. For those who find themselves in a situation where they feel like they have a personal obligation or like a duty to help their loved ones, and so the issue is not so much that maybe they themselves might be good with their finances, maybe they don't have bad spending habits. What do you recommend that they do in that situation?
Yeah. So your question is, I'm just repeating the question for other people watching on my Instagram. So your question is black tax. So black tax is, where some people have to pretty much support other family members.
Yeah.
So what is the best they good financial lives while still doing that, or how can they manage the situation? And I think I actually never but
Hello. Okay, so it seems as if we may have lost our dear Chinazom. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and close out the session. You guys have, thank you so much for those who, oh, it looks like she may be.
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry, I had some connection issues.
It's okay. Yeah, so you were sharing a little bit about Black tax.
Yeah, but sharing about Black tax and how you need to create boundaries for yourself. Like, if anything, you have to put down your budget. Yes, I'm going to give out this amount of money each month to people. But I think that you should find a way to put down your budget and also to create those boundaries. Because chances are, if you fall into any financial problems, those people might not be able to bail you out, even though they're family members. But a lot of times, the reason they're in the place they are in the first place is because they have poor financial habits. So the chances are, even if you're in a poor financial situation, they won't be able to help you out. So I think creating those boundaries and, making sure that, everybody's clear about, their creating those boundaries and making sure that nobody is just making sure that people know that you're not responsible for them.
Absolutely. And also tell them to hit up Chinazom at investmentconversations.com because
yes,
that person may or may not need just a personal finance guru to help them whip them into shape. So yeah, so I just want to take the time to thank you. Thank you so much for joining us on the SheVestor Africa webinar, the platform. We really do appreciate your insight, your personal insights. You have shared a lot. So thank you, and thank you to our viewers for tuning in. Today's topic was how to be bougie on a budget. So how to be bougie on a budget. So please be sure to check Chinazom out. She can be found on Instagram at IC_Chinazom. It's spelled CHINAZOM. And be sure also to follow us on SheVestor on Instagram, SheVestor. And all of that information will be in the description below. Thank you all. And thank you.
Thank you, and have a great weekend, Chichi.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
I'm really happy that I had the opportunity to do this.
Yes, thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.